Well, there you are. Well, welcome to part 21D on the Lackawanna Cut-Off. The missing 21 miles. We're covering the 21 miles between Andover, New Jersey and the Delaware Water Gap, and today where we will cover from here at Blairstown to the Paulinskill Viaduct. Hi, I'm Chuck Walsh, and I'm president of the North Jersey Rail Commuter Association. And obviously we're here at Blairstown where we ended our previous episode, 21C. The weather conditions are actually favorable today. We were supposed to get thunderstorms and it actually has cleared up, so it looks like we're okay in that respect. As we have had in the past with all these episodes, we're dealing with a very wet spring, so as a result I would expect to see some mud and maybe even standing water as we've seen before. What are we going to see in this particular episode? Well, we start here, Blairstown. This was the only station on the cutoff which made it all the way to the end of passenger service in 1970. And it is the last station on the cutoff moving west. So we've been to Andover, Greendale, Johnsonburg, and now Blairstown. From here on in, all the way to into Pennsylvania, there are no more stations. But there are other things. One of them is at the very end of this ride, of course, the Paulinskill Viaduct, which is, we'll talk more about that when we get there. Probably in our next episode, which will be 21E, but it was the largest reinforced concrete structure in the world when it was built, when it was completed in 1911. But in between there and here is just a little bit over 6 miles. So that's kind of the story here, that we're, unlike in the previous episode where it was in the low 50s, it's right now in the mid 70s, so it's quite a bit warmer. But in terms of what we'll see, once we get past here, there are 2 overhead bridges which are not really that far from here at this point. The first one will be Heller Hill Road, and the second one will be a farm overhead bridge. And then everything is underpasses after that, or the viaduct, which we will be at the very end of this particular segment. We have Vale Fill, which is very large, tall fill, which went past Marion's house, talking about Molasses Junction. There's also Blairstown Siding. All of our segments have sidings on them, and in this segment we have Blairstown Siding. If you recall, when we did the episode part 11 on the cutoff, the sidings on the cutoff, we did the archaeological expedition there, and we saw the foundation of what would have been a very tall 50-foot water tank there for steam engines. That tank is long gone, but the cement foundation is still there. So that's another thing we'll see. And the rest of it, I don't know. We saw wildlife. I saw deer. Probably wasn't easy to see in the video because of the wide-angle lens, but we did have deer. Unfortunately, picked a few ticks off of me, so there, I think deer and ticks, it's not a real good combination, but that's kind of part and parcel of doing this type of thing out here in the wild. And with the trees, the foliage is, as we've moved from A all the way now into Part D, the foliage is becoming much more lush, and we're probably 90% along the way, and certainly by the next episode everything will be in full bloom. But today it's pretty close to full, I'd say. So that is about it in terms of my intro. We'll do a closeout at the viaduct, and in between we'll go for the ride, and we'll, as I always say, cross our fingers. As I've mentioned in previous episodes about the grade, for the most part the grade is going to be close to the maximum, a little over 0.5%, so that, once again, gravity working in favor of me, as opposed to having to battle that. So that's a good thing. But the story will probably be the conditions. We'll just have to see. And if there's any points of interest, we'll make a quick stop. So, time to get on the bike and time to head on out. And see you at Hainesburg, my videographer Larissa, and wish me a pleasant ride. Hope everything goes well here. We'll see.
A very tall fill. hill overpass. And I'm afraid water. And bugs. And we'll stay here. I always wonder how far a bug will actually follow you. What point do they give up? Or do they call in reinforcements and have one of their friends take over for them once they leave their territory? Because I would think most bugs, they must have a, like, they're not going to go the full 6 miles. Anybody I picked up at the station probably is going to give up the chase at some point. One thing we haven't seen a whole lot in any of our jaunts on this 21-mile section, and that's the yellow orb in the sun, in the sky. The sun, it's been noticeably absent. Glad to see you're on duty finally. Haven't seen much of you lately. This is definitely tricky stuff here. I can't knock the bugs away, so I have to blow them away. So if you hear a burst of air from time to time, that's what it is. Yeah. This is borderline. Would have preferred to have gone through this, but it's always one of those things you don't know until you're in it, whether you should have stopped or not already. Here comes the second bridge. This one's the farm crossing bridge. I'll show you a photo of the two. They're quite visible within each other's reach. And this is actually a curve. It's like I think a 1% curve. It's not a 2%, I believe. Of course, you're relying on my feeble memory here, but I'm going to go through a spider web. That's lovely. Okay, here we go. Oh boy. Challenge is to keep going. It's only mud, I'd like to tell myself. Okay. Or spider webs. I'm blowing away spider webs. These are pretty deep holes. You're not going to be able to tell in the video, but it's like a series of gullies that repeat. Yeah, I didn't like that. I'm a mess too. Well, hey, this is to be expected, I'm afraid, on this one. A nice running, babbling brook to our left. It's babbling a lot. These things are tiresome. Go for it. There we go. Stop. It isn't so much for, I think I can make it under here on the bike. I'm not so sure about this one branch sticking up though. But the unevenness of the ground underneath it is just not a good combination. As I've pointed out in previous installments, the old eastbound main is to our left. We are traveling what is the westbound main. I suspect that we are, in fact I'm virtually certain, we are in the area of the Blairstown Siding. Just the width of the right-of-way, and I know that the Blairstown Siding is over here, so it's one thing to look at a map, it's another thing to actually be doing this out here on the right-of-way. But anyway, I think it's a pretty safe bet that we've come here to the siding, and we've been here before. As I mentioned about the water tank, that I remember that being in a cut though, so we're still in a fill. And the water tank, I think, was, memory serves, was roughly in the center of the siding. Yeah, these are once again pretty bad. They're upwards of a foot or more deep. This one over here is well over a foot deep. 18 inches, you know, I can't really gauge, maybe even closer to 2 feet. Anyway, the water tank, if memory serves, is approximately in the center of where the sidings were. So if the sidings were roughly a mile or a little over a mile in length from where we entered on one end, it'll be, you know, give or take a half a mile to the water tank. All right, looks like, well, looks like we'll just get ballast up here, which is not the best thing, but it's tough because as slow as it is walking, it's a little over 2 miles an hour. If I stop, get off, or even worse, fall over, I'm probably wasting as much time. And this way, at least I keep going. I'd rather be on top of the bike going 5, 6, 7. We'll see if we get above that. I was able to get up to like 10 or 11 on the Greendale section briefly, but we'll see. We need more favorable conditions to be able to do that. Let's see here. This looks a little bit better, at least as far as the eye can see, but that's not very far. Yeah. See, this is the problem. Yeah, we've entered the cut, so I suspect we'll be seeing our friendly water tank pretty soon. When they have these sidings, they sometimes do this. I don't know what to call this, where they wouldn't cut back completely, but they'd have this wall. I know it's a cut, but it almost resembles a wall when they have these sidings. And it's peculiar to the areas that have the sidings. I'm focusing on the hillside over here. And I should really be focusing on getting back on my bike. But one of the things on riding a bike, it gives you a different perspective, not only in terms of distance than walking, I'm sure, than going on like a dirt bike or ATV, but in terms of the, here we go again with the grade, you definitely feel it differently. And on this you can see now that we're definitely going down grade. It wasn't that apparent before, but then again now we have a pretty straight shot where we can actually see ahead. You still have to keep your wits about you. This is not something you can, like, sometimes I'm like, if you're bicycling out on the open road, you can do a little bit of daydreaming. This is not conducive to that. You really have to concentrate most of the time. Another babbling brook. I don't think it's the same one. Yeah, it's a different one. It comes from underneath. Going from left to right. Oh, a little bit of a waterfall. See, can we? I'm backing up, but you can see a little bit. Very pretty. Well, unless the water tower somehow, or the foundation of the water tower somehow disappeared, I think this should be where it is, coming up here. Of course, have I been wrong before? Yeah. Afraid so. It's here. It's not missing. I'm not going to say it got moved because that's obviously not the case. But here it is. We'll stop here. Stop right next to it. I don't know if it's visible in the GoPro, but you can see where someone has drawn fairly accurately, as it turns out, a water plug, which you would have seen on these sidings here, which would have been used to pull down, basically, and you can see here 1911, pull down for water into the tender, the steam locomotive. What's interesting, though, is if you look at the maps, and I did scan ahead here, if you look at the map for it, this water tower is not listed, or I should say it's not found on the map. So, and in fact, there's one that it's just a black dot basically, but there's one at Blairstown, which I'm not aware that there was one at Blairstown. So I'm wondering if I don't know what happened, because the map I'm looking at is after 1911. It's like 1913, 14, somewhere in there. But definitely after the cutoff had opened. And how is it they're missing that there's a water tower here? And once again, I'm not confident that there was one at Blairstown. I'm not aware that there was. So I don't know how that happened. I can't, that's a mystery that I cannot explain. So, okay, we're still on Blairstown Siding. And in these videos, I speak as if these things still exist, and of course they don't. I mean, I'm not delusional or anything, but I speak of them as if they do exist. Because the right-of-way exists, and we're talking about, in many cases, the history of the line. We're also talking about me keeping upright here, but I'll talk about these things as if they exist. But believe me, I am fully cognizant of the fact that this siding, for example, has been gone for, I think it came out right around the time that mainline steam was discontinued on the Lackawanna. Here's a signal. Oh, the remains of a signal, of course. But which would now be, but getting back to the water tower, steam ended on the mainline steam on the Lackawanna was discontinued around 1950. So that's almost 70 years ago. So this siding here, I have to use the word in the plural, sidings, there's an east and a westbound siding, has not existed for 70 years, basically. So don't go thinking to yourself, well, Chuck is living in a dream world. No. But I will speak, once again, I'll say that. I won't say it again. I'll speak sometimes as if the siding still existed, and when, of course, it does not. There's one good thing about the ballast, and that is that the trickiness of it today is to some extent keeping my mind off the bugs that are going after me. They've been pretty relentless. I don't know if we've lost our friends who started with us back at the station. I may actually have worn them out, I don't know. But you have to figure that at some point someone else will pick up the chase here, and I'll probably have company all the way to the viaduct. I'm pretty much be surprised if I don't. So Phil looks small on the left, but very tall on the right. I sometimes question myself, well, why did I stop here? And why didn't I keep going? And I'll tell you, it's a judgment call. Like here you have the mud, and then a mound, and then of course ballast thrown in here. Now one thing I think it's quite obvious, but I'll point it out anyway. Now that we've entered into mid-May, we've had plenty of rain, and well, the leaves are all out, just about, and you can see the foliage is quite a bit different in terms of being able to see out, so to speak. It may be unique to this section, but the foliage is definitely encroaching on the right-of-way here, and that's also adding a layer, an extra layer of complexity here in terms of what do I do? How do I stay going? Do I walk the bike? I have a whole bunch of gallons, I think. Yeah, I don't know if I would survive that. Still on a fill, although not as sizable as it was. As far as I can tell, I'm not over at the edge here. We're still, if I were to hazard a guess here, and I think it's a pretty good educated guess, is that, well, I'm going to keep going here. I'll keep talking. That we're still on Blairstown Siding. Although I don't expect that to last too much longer. I want to say it ends right around Belcher Road. I'll get a second chance to guess at these things, so I'm being conservative. Here we go. I don't know. Okay, we did that one. Recognize this. This is Cedar Lake Road. I don't think I can. I have to stop before this. I got a bug in my eye anyway. Probably the bug from Blairstown. Probably did a suicide mission, figuring he's given up, but he's going to get back at me. Going to a cut here. Nice shot from here of a fan trip. A couple of shots we can show you from back in the steam era, taken right around here. In fact, I'm virtually certain up on the top of that cut there. Not sure if that telephone pole slash telegraph pole was in that shot, but it's right around here that it was taken. definitely one I wanted to avoid. All right, so right away is extra wide here, but I'm virtually certain there were only 2 tracks maximum here. Because I now past the siding, Blairstown Siding. And we won't see another siding until Part E, which is Hainesburg Siding. Very deep cut here. Imagine the bird is commenting on my presence here. Yeah. I don't know if he's saying avoid the mud. As usual, they're probably getting a pretty good laugh out of you coming through here on a bicycle. Guys who come on the motorized vehicles, I'm sure they don't have enough time to contemplate their stupidity for doing this. Actually, they're not stupid. I'm the one who's put myself through this, but this is definitely a different way to experience the cutoff. I hope you're enjoying the experience. I sound like often that I'm moaning and groaning here, and to some extent I do. I have to admit that. To some extent it keeps me going too here, because I kind of vent to my invisible audience. Let's change the subject. It's turned out to be a very nice day. That was not the forecast. We're near Vale, I'm pretty sure. I'm guessing this is Vale Phil. The last time I was here, it was similar weather, strangely enough. A year or so ago, I guess it was. I think that's when I first got the idea, or the notion of doing this video. slowly enter a muddy section. This is not one you want to stop in. This is smooth, but not the best, to say the least. Okay. Because of the overgrowth, it's not easy to tell exactly where you are. Back when I first did my first walk across the cutoff, this is my first bike ride, by the way, my first walk across the cutoff, you could see where you were. More difficult, like if you're in a cut or so forth, but on the fills they were still pretty pretty open, and you can see often, of course, if you knew where you were, I would know now, but I wasn't from the area at that point, so I was learning as I went along, basically. But now that I know where I am, I can't see where I am. So it's sort of like dead reckoning in terms of relative time and distance to figure out where I am. And I could be wrong. I could, don't always know for sure. Just lost my pedals. When I say I lost them, I just skipped out from under me. Well, I could get on, but you know what? We're going to have a detour here. Amazing how a whole bunch of trees can come down in one spot. Could be the ground was weak. I don't know. I mean, these fills were not intended to hold trees. They just, with lack of foliage or weed control, it has gotten bigger and bigger over the years, and some of them get too big and they fall down. Like any other tree. Reach the limit of what the roots can physically support, and then a good wind, which up here on a fill you can very easily get, and voila, you have a downed tree. Oh my gosh, we got some really deep ruts here. More downed trees. And don't get discouraged. I mean, all this stuff can be cleared off rather quickly. There are people who can do this. They've already done it on at least part of the section to Andover. You'd be very surprised how quickly they can clear off this. So we need to think in terms of what this would or could be, as opposed to what it is right now. That's why I focus on the straightness, the grade, all that kind of stuff. Those are the things that make this railroad, the Lackawanna Cut-Off, great. We're just in an in-between period between its first life and its rebirth. Huge field to our left. Clearance there, but that's going to be short-lived with this coming up here. Try to take advantage of it when I get the clear section, but there's not too many of those to take advantage of. Yeah, look at that field. Sounds like we're coming up on another road. I'm gonna not guess as to what it is, but I think I do know what it is. I think we go faster this way. So again, that's what I'm thinking of in terms of the overall, what's the fastest way to do this. And that's, I realize that's all relative, because 3-4 miles an hour isn't really fast, of course, but it's better than 2. Do we go through this? Yeah, we will. Okay. Sounds like the ball field at Vale, but I can't see it, so I can't verify, but it is a big enough fill that this could be Vale Molasses Junction. I went right into it. Oh well. curves. These just can't, in spite of all your best efforts, you can't keep it going. Another cut. And we're still on Vale Curve, which was the 1 degree curve. 80-mile-an-hour curve when the speed limit was 80 miles an hour, which it was one time. Signal. We gotta stop anyway. If I had a true mountain bike, I just didn't. Yeah, we got all this stuff here anyway. Okay, that was a, as rides go, that was a pretty good one. We got up, I didn't look down, I was pedaling away, but that was our fastest section today, I can tell you for sure. All right. Doing a bug check. there's a limit to what I can do here. Okay, what have we got here? It looks like we got, I hate to call it smooth sailing. It's all relative, but yeah, it's definitely not that smooth. But a lack of those ruts doesn't help. Well, I do see there'll be a detour coming up. Let's see, keep her going until then. As far as I can go. Oh, this is a unique situation. Looks like you get a choice. And do I take the road less traveled? I'm going to take the road less traveled. I figured there must be people come along here with chainsaws. No way these things would have been taken care of otherwise. Okay. Remount the bike, readjust the helmet, the glasses. Things kind of tend to get out of alignment when you're bouncing around here. And one of the things that when you do these things, in this case, especially since it's a long jaunt, and if the weather is iffy, you plan like, okay, what happens if? What happens if a thunderstorm hits? Where will be a rescue point? And Larissa and I did discuss that. It will not be an issue tonight. I mean, I'm absolutely amazed because the forecast kept changing, but it was a matter of just moving the thunderstorms back in time. Now they've been eliminated from the forecast, and not only have they been eliminated, but looks like pretty much the clouds have been eliminated. Oh, come on, let's go. I'm talking too much, and there we go. But we did discuss a couple of locations where if it got part way and we could have these pop-up thunderstorms, which is what they were predicting for this afternoon. I'm going to sneeze, I think. Oh, excuse me. Told you it was the pollen. Anyway, we had to have a couple of places where if for some reason we had to abort the trip and pick it up another day, but get me out of the storm, We did discuss a couple of places, but in retrospect, it really, I'm not sure. Well, I'm just glad we didn't have to do it. Let's put it that way. Now, if I looked at myself and I could tell where we are, because I do have the run keeper going, and the map programs. This is the great thing about now. As long as you have cell service, you can pretty much exactly pinpoint where you are, so you're never really lost. If you don't have cell service, well, that's a different story. But as long as you have a signal, you can typically figure out where you are. And in the event where a storm did pop up, that would be the way to figure out where do we meet, where to pick me up and get me out of it. Once again, it's turning out to be a little muggy, but it's otherwise compared to a lot of the weather we've already had this year, and particularly this spring, this is pretty good. This is actually, I'd almost put it in the wonderful category. It's been that lousy, so this is really a very pleasant change. This is, there's a couple different names, Polkville Road, but there's more than one Polkville Road. I think it would be considered Vale Polkville Road. We'll be passing over that shortly. Parallel it for a little bit. But not for very far. You can see, well, maybe you saw that car, but we're about to go over it. No, I'm not.
No?
No, I guarantee you.
That live down that way, do you know of?
No, I don't.
No?
No.
Okay.
You found it, I take it?
Yeah, it's a homeowner found it in their yard, so we're just seeing if we can find the homeowner or the owners of the drone.
No.
No.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, thanks, sir.
Well, you have to agree that was an unusual encounter that I had with the state troopers about the drone. I've included this video not only because of the unusual encounter, but also because, of course, we're going to get a view of McCain Bridge from underneath. And we're going up Vale Polkville Road and headed right towards it. And we're going to see an old photo first, though. See two guys peering down, and what might be photographer Bunnell's car coming towards us. And then there's that mysterious concrete wall, which is on the other side. We'll talk about that in a moment. Here we go. We're going to go underneath. It's 110 years old, so you have to figure that, yeah, it's got some wear and tear on it. Here we go now. We're going to see this concrete wall. It still exists, and that's what it says on the map, but that's nothing specific about it. Might have been privacy type of fence. You can see through in the old photograph like planks and stuff sticking up, being held by these spikes, but don't know. I'm not really sure what that was for. And here comes the old McCain house.
Through this with things that can scratch you hanging down. Power lines. It's an open area. I have a shot taken 30 years ago. tough to keep going. Keep at it here. Hill Road. Call it code for nothing. This is a killer. I'm going, but whew, this isn't. Draw the fillings out of your teeth. Oh, we're going over Kill Road right now, literally, and I'll just readjust everything here, because we're going to be doing a little bit of walking now. We have a barrier which has been erected here. I want to say it was originally part of the one that's at the viaduct. There's another one at the viaduct, but and this one was brought over here. I really don't know. I wasn't up here while it was in one place. How they moved it, well, how they got it up here is another thing. I don't know. But in the distance, we can see the second barrier, which is the one that is at the viaduct. It'd be nice to make a grand entrance, but I've already gone over this before. This is a really tough section here. It'd be nice to make a grand entrance. I just don't know. Let's see. The last time I was here, though, I wasn't as good at it. I've gotten better at this. I guess you ride this enough, you get the hang of how to deal with the difficulty of this. But oh, here we go. There is a skill to this. Now we're going to go over the sack. There. Well, it looks like the signal base was here someplace, but got moved. I'm afraid I anticipated this section because, once again, I've been on this recently, and I don't know why this is the way it is. This is rather rare that it's this bad in terms of having ballast. Do we get back on, or I don't know. It seriously almost looks better over right next to the ties. Better is all relative here. I'm wondering if they used some sort of equipment, and I don't know that they did, but I assume they had to move these barriers, these blocks, that they might have stirred up a bunch of ballast in doing so. I really don't know. But I'm afraid to say that neither barrier is effective at this point. Okay, we come to the Paulinskill Viaduct. We're going to go up to the edge of it. Okay, I said we wouldn't enter on to the Paulinskill Viaduct. Well, heck, went a few feet onto the Paulinskill Viaduct. So, just a little bit under 6 miles, at least according to my GoPro. I guess my calculation for 6, a little bit over 6, would have been to the middle of the bridge. Okay, 5.95 miles, close enough. We got to see the water tank. We saw the 2 overhead bridges. They'll fill. Of course, the viaduct was a big thing, although in our next episode we'll cross this viaduct and go from here to the next viaduct, which is only about 2.5 miles from here. But in this episode, a little bit different in terms of what was there. I was able to keep going quite a bit more, but the sheer length, of course, played into how long it took to get to this spot. But overall, surprisingly, the conditions were better than probably than any of the other sections, relatively speaking. That was good. So, not much else to report. We're working our way towards Pennsylvania. This is part D. E, as I just mentioned, will take us from here, the Paulinskill Viaduct, Hainesburg,
The town of Hainesburg is behind us. Delaware Water Gap is behind us. Part E will take us from here to the eastern edge of the Delaware River Viaduct. And then as a preview to Part F will take us the rest of the way all the way to Slateford Junction. So we've gone over most of the cutoff. I mean, right now we essentially are roughly, a guesstimate is about 3.5 miles or so from Slateford Junction. We're not very far away. So we've conquered most of the Lackawanna Cut-Off, the 21 missing miles, but a little bit more to go. An important part, very important part to go. So I hope that you look forward to our next episode, which will be part 21E, and that you've enjoyed part 21D on the Lackawanna Cut-Off.